Good morning. My name is Dr. John Taylor Kent. I'm a retired psychologist. I was a generalist. My last gig was working in the Arizona Department of Corrections. That's been quite a while ago. Since that job, I've been reading the Bible. 2006 to today is quite a while. But it's not long enough. I have not read the Bible enough. What I want to tell you today is what I don't like, what I have against Jordan Peterson, psychologist Jordan Peterson, Dr. Jordan Peterson. When I first heard about Jordan Peterson, another psychologist brought him to my attention, and he wanted to know my impressions. He wanted to know my opinion. So I spent some time looking at the videos and making a determination. And something rankled me. Something really bothered me quite a bit. And I was struck by the absence, the failure on Dr. Peterson's part to name the enemy, to identify the enemy, the bad guys. He never called them out, never identified them. And so it was this lack of insight or this omission, this glaring omission, which bothered me. I loved what the man said. I consider him more of a philosopher than myself. He's definitely a deep thinker, quite an intellectual, spry on his feet when it comes to mental gymnastics, debates, and insight. I had to admire everything he said. But he wouldn't tell us who the bad guys were. And when a man doesn't tell us who the bad guys are, there's usually cause for that. There's reason for that. And it's important to pay attention to that. Now, another gentleman who had the same problem was Alex Jones. He didn't tell us who the bad guys were either. And same thing as with Dr. Peterson. I discovered that the two had something in common, or at least it appears they have something in common. So I don't have time to chase down all these facts, so I'm just going to say it. By failing to name the bad guys and point them out, they stay alive because we are ruled by murderers and thieves today. They are able to have an audience. But more importantly than that, they get sponsored by the bad guys, particularly in the case of Alex Jones. His studio was owned by an organized crime family out of Canada. The family was big in the bootlegging, the days back when they used to run alcohol across the border, make a lot of money at it. That was after the women got the right to vote and screwed things up by having the temperance movement and creating the giant prohibition, which led in turn to organized crime, which led in turn to a higher organized crime, which we call the FBI. And how's that going for you today, boys and girls? The FBI is no good. It's non-functional gear. It's weaponized. I don't trust them. That's just one of the problems we have. And it's the bad guys who run the FBI. They work for the bad guys. They run the whole country. They run all of our institutions. Now, who are the bad guys? Well, there's a problem because when you say who the bad guys are, you get branded right away because people don't understand the big picture. The bad guys are in the Bible. And it takes quite a bit of Bible reading to understand it. Why? Because the big box churches, the ones on almost every corner that have the real estate tax-free, who leech off the rest of us, they don't tell us the truth. Why? Because it's big business. It's a money-making scheme. Not only that, but our government decided that they needed to be non-profit organizations. So our government controls them. Our government tells them what they can preach and what they may not preach. And one of the most important things you're not allowed to preach is that not all men came from Adam. That's not biblical. When we read the Bible and go to the original language, we discover there are several words for Adam, Adam kind, and several words for the earthy men, the less noble men who were here first, by the way. They were here for almost 2 million years. And Adam kind was placed here last. Got to read the Bible to a very advanced level to get that as well. Jordan Peterson and Alex Jones do not identify the real bad guys. They'll do the surface thing. But the bad guys are the descendants of Cain. And the problem is, and the Bible documents this rather well, that the errant fellow who screwed things up for us all was Esau. Esau took 2 Canaanite women to wife. Not 1, but 2. And the Bible says clearly that when Esau saw how much it upset his parents when he took the first Canaanite woman to wife, he married a second one. He doubled down. And he went ahead and had children by them. So his children are hybrids. They're a mix. They've got fallen satanic DNA in them, or fallen angelic DNA in them, or fallen alien DNA in them. Got that? Please be flexible. Be flexible in your thinking. So we don't have to say they were angels. We don't have to say they were devils. We don't have to say that they were aliens. We just have to say that they disturbed the original creation the way Yahweh created it, which is the way he loved it. It was the way things were good. So we have these spoilers. And the reason Alex Jones and Jordan Peterson don't mention it, in the case of Alex Jones, he's actually kind of controlled opposition. He's actually a spoiler out there. He makes an ass of himself, and he makes an ass of you and me who lean upon those ways. He especially did that with gun control, with that British MI6 agent, that jerk. So he gets up there and yells at the world, yells as loud as he can, puts on a scene, thereby making the rest of us look bad. Alex Jones Studio is owned by a family out of Canada, an organized crime family. Who are they? They're descendants of Cain. They gave us organized crime in a couple of different levels. They gave us, the bootleggers, the moonshiners. They gave us all of that crime. And then worse than that, they gave us the solution to that, the organized, super organized FBI that organized the police at a federal level. We didn't need to go that way. We should have just allowed sheriffs to work across state lines, county lines. We just needed to authorize them a little bit more. I think we can go back to that. I hope we can, because that's about the only way we're going to get law and order in this country, is to go back to sheriffs, which means going back to militias. And I know you think, oh my God, Dr. Kent's a nut, man. Well, that might be true. But as far as having a militia is a good thing. Because in order to have a militia, you have to have organization. There has to be goodness in it. Generate, double organize, destroy. Good. Generate, organize, and destroy. God. You need a militia because a man has to be in good standing with his community to be a member of the militia. In order to own arms, in order to be accepted by the other men, he's got to be able to have some good ethics and morals. He's got to be able to get along with people. He has to abide by the natural order. He has to abide by God's law, natural law. So I'm beating around the bush and I'm not telling you who the bad guys are. The bad guys are the descendants of Cain. Israelites were told approximately 5 times in the Old Testament, do not take the daughters of the people of the land for wives for your sons. Don't intermarry with them. Do not give your daughters to the people of the land for wives for their sons. Don't intermarry with them. And there were several reasons for that. Some of those were genetic abnormalities. The other was the big fight in which the satanic class of beings wanted to become God and rule the earth. And they do rule the earth today. They rule over you and I right now. They control our institutions. That Federal Reserve is how they took this nation down and took it over. They bought off men at every level, blackmailed them, cajoled them. And when I say ruled by murderers and thieves, I do mean that. They have assets all over the country, CIA assets. They've even got a section of the FBI that does murders for them too. It's a small group. The other members of the FBI don't know who they are, or they probably roust them out. Or if they are aware of those guys, they keep their mouths shut because they want to live. Same with Alex Jones. The same with Jordan Peterson. He likes getting the attention. The media would cut him off. Same with Alex Jones. The media would cut him off. But they actually help. They act as lightning rods for the rest of us, and they suck us into things. Now, in the case of Dr. Peterson, he doesn't understand the Bible all that well. He needs to go read the Bible and educate himself. And he needs to be able to call out the enemy. Now, the original sin, which we blame on Adam and we blame on Eve. The women blame the men blame the women. That blame game keeps going on and keeps us divided. The real culprit were the fallen angels. And you have to go to Genesis chapter 6 to get that. There were many fallen angels. There was only one that seduced Eve, and his name was Gadriel. And from Gadriel, we get the abbreviation, the nickname Gad or God. That's how you get the generic term of God in the Bible, which is not so generic. It means it's basically named after the bad guy who was one of the leaders of the fallen angels, the fallen aliens. And he was the one that seduced Eve. He was the one that started this problem that we have. Now, I'm going to bring to your attention the fact there were 200 of these fallen aliens that gathered on Mount Hermon. And Yahshua, the Messiah, took his disciples up to Mount Hermon one time. And I believe that Yahshua came to the earth in order to fix that original sin, to correct that original sin. And that's where we are at today. We're still all mixed up. And it's worse than what you think, because the Bible only tells us about the effects of one fallen angel on mankind. There were 200 of them. So there's a lot more to this. And when it comes to separating the wheat from the tares, when it comes to separating those with this fallen angelic foreign DNA from the rest of us that abide by and live within, exist within the natural order, within the structure as Yahweh, Creator, Father, God made it, and as He made it, He declared each part of it good. He loved the creation the way He made it. Long come usurpers. They want to rise above Yahweh, above Creator Father. And they decide they're going to marry into God's family. And that way, they can become in-laws and they can inherit everything. And right now, they own the planet. They own you and me. They created a bunch of frauds. They created a birth certificate And with their language, magic, whatever you want to call it, they deceived us because birth is spelled B-E-R-T-H. So they gave us admiralty law, and they gave us all of these certificates and trade us on the stock exchange. They did a lot of wicked stuff. And I know you don't want to believe me because it's so big. It's so hard to understand. It took me my entire lifetime to come to the understanding I have today, and I'm not satisfied with the level of my understanding. I hope you're not satisfied with the level of your understanding. Why? Because I need you to become Bible readers. I need 5% of the population of America to read their Bibles on a regular basis. With that many men and women reading and educated upon the Bible, we will understand natural law better. We will understand right from wrong better. We will be able to know the truth better and to not be so readily deceived and fall victims to their series of frauds that they have perpetrated upon us. Yahweh Creator Father gave us some really good men. Our founders were brilliant. They were more intelligent than you or I today. You don't believe me? Go read the works of the founding fathers. Read their writing. Can you write at that level? Can you even understand what they were saying, what they wrote? Alex Jones didn't call the bad guys out because it looks like he married into the family. Same might be true for Dr. Peterson. I haven't had a chance to research that yet. I just know that neither man points out the fact that Revelations 2:9 and 3:9 points to the bad guys very clearly in the Bible. And in these two verses, and it's in the Bible twice, which means it's a double witness, which means pay attention to this. Yahweh, God, Creator, Father, wants you to learn something here, folks. It's in the Bible twice as a double witness. And we even have a fivefold witness when it comes to do not intermarry with the people of the land, with the Canaanites. Pay attention. The Bible calls them Edomites. Another word used in the Bible is a Greek-derived word for Edomites, and that is Idumean. Herod the Great was an Idumean. And the Edomites came down through a group that converted to Judaism, and that group was called the Ashkenazi. And the predecessing name for the Ashkenazi, which is the Ukraine, is a small section of that original nation. It was really big, much bigger than Ukraine. It was huge. It was massive. That nation was a nation of sociopaths. And they loved war, and they had some real weird practices. They loved poisons. From them we get our pharmakia, we get our medicine, which is all based upon principles of poisoning and toxicity, principles of disabling and toxicity. That all come out of that country as well. Don't believe me? Look up the headquarters for all the pharmaceutical companies. Guess what they are, boys and girls? You ever hear of a city called Kiev? Yeah, every one of them has got their headquarters in that city in the Ukraine. Very important. The symbols for the militias over in the Ukraine, it's a symbol for ancient Khazarias embroidered in that. In the shoulder patches will be a little tiny figure. Looks like a winged horseman or some giant gnat or some damn thing. That's the symbol of ancient Khazaria. They loved war. They loved it so much that they had a professional army that they leased out and rented out to their neighbors around them, to go after their other neighbors. They were horrible people. And their descendants, to a large extent, have populated that little postage stamp of a country that we call Israel today. Israel, the real Israel. Will the real Israel please stand up? Israel are the descendants of a man named Israel. He got that name after he wrestled with God all night long and prevailed. Now, he didn't beat God. He just lasted the entire night. And Yahweh touched him on the hip in order to disable him. Maybe it was an illegal move. And as a result, he became crippled. And that was an important feature. So Jacob was the name his parents gave him. Jacob became named Israel as a result of that. And it was Yahweh who gave him that name. El being God. Israel, he who rules with God. Now, the principle I want to get across to you is we were never intended, we were not designed to do it all on our own. We weren't designed to rule without Yahweh. I don't think that we were intended to be the supreme race. I think we are the servant race. I think our purpose is to run this planet to help out all the inhabitants of the planet. And we can't do that on our own. We have to have God's natural law, Creator Father's natural law. And we are imbued by that by reading His Word, by reading the words of the prophets in particular. And you're going to find there's a lot of prophecy that has not been fulfilled yet in the Old Testament. So, the problem we have is that these men have received these particular positions of influence. And in the case of Mr. Jones, I don't think he's been a good influence in many ways. He's rambunctious, and he gives us common people a bad name. Especially when it comes to 2A people, Second Amendment people, gun rights people. What a horrible representative. He shouldn't be allowed to be up there on the stage. What a petulant little boy. And he married somebody that was descended out of the land of Canaan. I think Jordan Peterson might be guilty of that. Or maybe their descendants have got a little bit of Canaanite in them already. I don't know. That's one that only Creator Father Yahweh is going to be able to separate out. You know, separating the wheat from the chaff is not going to be easy. It requires fine levels of discriminating judgment. It's not a bad word. To make a good judgment call, it's the only way you're going to have justice, which means you have to know the truth. Then you can have justice. If you don't know the truth and understand the truth, you will never have justice. That's why throughout the Bible, particularly in the New International Version, what I gather from it was love, truth, and justice. It was a command throughout the Bible. It's in that order. So you have to know the truth first. So you have to love the truth first in order to render justice. So I ask you, do you see any justice in our courts? No. Do you see any justice? Well, it's not totally out to lunch. It's not totally out of control yet. But I think we're headed that way. And that's by design. So in order for us to get our country back, you and I have to read our Bibles. We have to be able to understand who the good guys are and the bad guys are. And we have to do that by judging, by knowing their fruit, getting the facts, knowing what's true, and then applying the Word of God, applying the natural law, applying the 10 Commandments, so that we can make the best call possible, the best decisions possible, so that we can formulate the best action plans possible and take action. Because this earth isn't going to save itself. And the people that are in charge are busy destroying the earth. They destroy the air and the water. They destroy the people. They even destroy the electrical waves, the sound waves. They destroy everything as best they can. They've weaponized music. They've weaponized sound. They've weaponized electronic transmissions. They've weaponized content. They've weaponized language. They've turned everything against us. They've weaponized. They use biology today. Look at what they put upon us. They use nuclear. They've waged war by that, and that's something else that's out there as well. But they wage war upon us all the time. This is perpetual, and it's unlimited warfare. But you and I cannot act back against them like that. We can't just take up guns and shoot. We can't do that. We have to rule with Yahweh, which means we have to abide by natural law. It means we have to go slow. They can go fast. And right now they're speeding up because they're desperate, because they know they can't hold on to control much longer. This is the fight between good and evil, folks. This is the fight, basically, to see who gets all the marbles, as one of the teachers says. This is the fight to the end. And they've already put an edifice up there, and they've destroyed it themselves, I believe, showing that they want to reduce the Earth's population to 500 million. Gee, from 700 billion, more than 700 billion to only 500 million. They're devils. They're descendants of the devil. Their father was a liar and a murderer to begin with. Their father was Cain. Bible's really clear on that. Now, they are the Edomites. The Bible's pretty clear on that as well, who became known as Idumeans. They live among us, and they've been ruling over us. In the case of the United States of America, they took us over with their money magic, with their usury, their usurious practices, which is just a small part of it. I don't think there's anything wrong with interest, but there's something wrong when you're able to do fractal banking and you're able to create money out of nothing and demand the other son of a bitch pay you back plus interest. So where are you going to get the interest that doesn't exist because they didn't create that? It's a lose-lose situation. That's why there's so much losing, and there will always be losing situations. And by the way, because we use their debt-based instruments, we're sentenced to these wars, insatiable wars, in which we kill our brothers and sisters in Israel around the planet, and they kill us too. And we harm a bunch of other friendlies, a bunch of other people that aren't involved in this war along the way. Folks, Jordan Peterson won't call out the false Jews. I have to be very careful about that. The Bible says clearly, Revelations 2:9 and 3:9, and Pastor Jerry Wicke was really patient with me, and every time I said this the wrong way, he corrected me. And thank God he took the time and loved me enough to correct me, because I needed that. And he instilled upon me this guideline. The Bible says clearly there's a group of people who claim they are Jews or Judeans or from Judah. That's another tease out. That's another confusing factor. People from the land of Judah. We have these people that say they are Jews and are not. In one of those verses it says, but are of the synagogue of Satan. And the other one says, I shall make you the synagogue of Satan, which really bothers me because what's he doing making them members of the synagogue of Satan? It sounds like he's set that failure up for us. I know I'm teasing it out too far and I'm taking it to an extreme. You have to forgive me. That's just part of the way I operate. I tend to brainstorm. I think outside the box. I take things and flex it as best I can and try to make it true from both directions at the same time. It's hard to hold these concepts in mind and give them both validity, but in the course of my training, I had a really wise fellow, smart man. Actually, I had several intelligent men, and the last one was the most intelligent of all, and he was going to train to be a rabbi. And the other two, well, they both were ministers. One was a Methodist minister, and the other one was Episcopalian. Wonderful gentlemen, and they were psychologists. And each one of them helped groom me, helped get me to where I am, and I'm really grateful for that. So there's a bad group that hides among them behind the Jews. And those are the bad guys. And the problem is that in order to get to the understanding that it's not the Jews, because it's not the Jews, you probably have to err and come to the conclusion first that it's the Jews. Why? Because it's easier to say that, easier to comprehend that, easier to stop at that step and blame the Jews. It's not the Jews. But the problem is the Jews have allowed themselves to be used. And they allow themselves to be used. They don't understand this thing either. You talk to a Jewish person and they're like, what? What are you talking about? I had a Jewish friend out of Louisiana, and I brought it up to her, and she said, oh, that's what it's about. She says, I've been wondering about this Jewish thing, what the problem is, why the Jews are attacked. Well, it's because there's two different groups. Isaiah writes there's good figs and bad figs. I think that the book you need to read is The Transfer Agreement by Edwin Black, himself Jewish. His parents did not want him to write the book, but once he had written the book, he was glad they did. What Edwin Black did is he documented the good Jews and the bad Jews. I'm just going to say it straight up like that. You had a good group that was trying to represent the Jews in Germany. And you had a bad group that generally was actually from Poland. Yeah, I know you're going to think I'm against the Poles. Well, my family is largely Polish. My mom was, well, half Polish anyway, so I got a quarter of that in me. And the Poles were the most beautiful. They got some of the most beautiful women. The men, tall, lithe, fair, blue-eyed, blonde-haired. They're more Nordic than the Norsemen were. That's why they murdered so many of them in the Katrin Forest. You have to understand the genocide's been going on for a long time, and it happens for a reason, and that Cain really is responsible for all of it. His children. So, to my Jewish friends out there, I beg you to join with the rest of us. And they're not, the bad guys aren't all Jews. There's a lot of non-Jews that are bad guys. I don't know if they're maybe fathered by the other 200 aliens, the other 200 angels, fallen angels that were driven down to the earth after the Archangel Michael beat them in a giant space battle and forced their spaceships down to the earth, imprisoned them on this planet. I just don't know. And in case you're wondering, I do think that we are different species, not different races. I get that from the way I read the Bible. And I believe that we come from different star systems, and we've been placed on this planet. I don't understand the purpose of it. It could have been just a big experiment. It could have been set up for our benefit and the growth. I just don't know. I just believe that the bad guys have survived previous Earth ages, come from previous Earth ages, and survived the cataclysms, and each one of these cataclysms is followed by an ice age. So do I believe in climate change? Oh, hell yeah. But it's not man-made. We're headed for an ice age. Once these volcanoes lit off, which is what I think this time is going to be, it's not just going to be a flood of limestone and sandstone across the face of the earth and another layer built up in the mountains. I think the volcanoes are going to blow this time. The electricity in the universe is picking up, and I think they're scheduled and right on schedule, and they're going to blow and give us a layer of basalt, a layer of ash. They're going to give us a dark winter, not being able to grow food for a couple of years. They're going to turn us into almost a nuclear winter. It's not going to be nuclear. It's going to be an ice age. It's going to be a deep freeze. The ice sheets will expand upon the earth, and I do think that the oceans are going to shrink up because a lot of that water is going to go into the ice. I think we're going to see lands exposed. I think the survivors are going to find there's so much earth to live on that it's going to be rare to see a man. You're going to be thirsting to see another man so you can have a conversation. Because I think a lot of us are going to get killed through this transition. And by the way, I don't think that the devil and his children have much to do with that particular transition. I mean, it's possible that they touch off this mechanism spiritually, or that we touch it off ourselves spiritually. I just don't know. I don't know all the inner workings of how Yahweh put this together. I just know that it gets recycled, that there's more than one flood in the Bible. So what these men do is they do everything except they tell you that the families that own and control the Federal Reserve, the families that came out of Venice, from which the black nobility came, they don't explain to you the giants that fathered the royalty of Europe. They don't tell you about these guys that were, 14 feet tall, that were 7 feet tall. These tall dudes that spread their DNA among us. They don't go through that. The Smithsonian destroys every giant skeleton when it comes in, which is what I have against the Smithsonian is they don't preserve any science. They help control the narrative for the bad guys that own and manage this planet. And now, my fellow psychologists, here's my accusations for you. Our symbol is Psi. The Greek letter Psi. The pitchfork, the fork of Neptune, god of the underworld. You and I have been managing this plantation for our keepers, for the masters. We've been devil's advocates for too long. All of the professions are devil's advocates. All the professions are turned against the laity. Look at the attorneys. They don't tell us the truth about constitutional law. They don't tell us the truth about our courts. They don't help free us from those burdens. They're too busy enriching themselves and making the rest of us carry their weight. They're too busy leeching off the rest of us. Look at the physicians. They're too busy practicing on us with their poisons, with chemicals, which are not what we should be taking for our healing. It should be from the leaves of the herbs, the trees. Those are healing and good for us and in the proper form for our bodies, rather than these minerals and extremely powerful toxins that they're given to us. So they're busy, and they insist on getting paid 2.5 times more than the next highest paid profession in the world. So they've got to make 2.5 times more than the attorneys do. And there's psychologists down there a little ways, busy controlling this planet, giving the rest of us bad names and bad labels and marginalizing us and giving us no hope by casting us in these diagnoses and saying it's lifetime. There's no hope for you. Send you to the psychiatrist, get you a little medication. It's a horrible system we have. So my complaint against Dr. Peterson is he's not calling out the bad guys. He's not identifying them. He's not making it easier for you. He is giving you information to help further the divide. And don't get me wrong, brilliant philosophy, brilliant analyses. He just doesn't go far enough. The same with Alex Jones. He brings some things, brilliant things to our attention, but he doesn't go far enough. They aren't willing to tell you that there's a bad group that hides among and behind the Jews. I'm willing to tell you that. It's basically in the Bible. So we could say it's written in stone as far as I'm concerned. And they put the evidence of their existence in stone at the Georgia Guidestones. They etched everything in granite for us to all see and witness. And then they had this incredible ceremony in which they destroyed their own edifice as a major symbol to the rest of them. Hey, boys and girls. Hey, fellow Canaanites. We're getting ready to pull the plug on them. This is worldwide. And if you look at the people in the positions of power and authority, all we have are figureheads. And behind the figureheads, we've got these fellows that all are united. They all claim the same inheritance. And they claim that they are the victims of crimes when in fact they are the sociopaths. They are the ones killing the rest of us. They did famine in the Ukraine, not once but twice. They did a genocide in Armenia. They took all of those beautiful women with long hair and they hung them and decorated the countryside with miles of them, bodies, naked bodies hanging from the crucifixes. And we called them the Young Turks, but then we find out there were Sabbateans and there were these errant people among the Jews. I'm telling you that we have a problem and we need to face the problem before these fellows destroy the earth. They're destroying the earth's ability to hold life. Their experiments are designed to destroy universes. Their god Shiva, the destroyer of universes. They're busy trying to open up that old stuff. I believe these folks actually destroyed life on the planet Mars. I think it was inhabited. We've got evidence of the cities, and we have a lack of an atmosphere. So did they destroy the atmosphere on the planet of Mars? Maybe God did that himself. Maybe Yahweh did that. I don't really know. There's a lot of things I don't know. What I do know is that I am a descendant of Adam and Eve. And that I have a mortal enemy out there who's a descendant of Gadriel and Eve. Quite a few of them. And it is in our DNA. It's part of why your DNA is important. And if you think it's not important, remember this. Yahweh reported to Cain, "Your brother Abel's blood cries out to me from the ground." How can blood cry out? Does it have a memory? Does it have a consciousness? Might it be software in a giant computer structured? Maybe the Matrix really does exist. Maybe the concept that we all live in a computer program is not as far removed as what we think. Maybe the concept that we are all linked together is not as remote as what we think. We need to read the Bible. We need to abide by the 10 Commandments. So this is my complaint about Dr. Peterson. He fails to identify the enemy. Therefore, I believe that he might be working for the enemy. He might be controlled by them. I'm not really sure, but I'm sure he'll get this message, and I hope he'll give me a bit of an answer. Probably hand me in my ass in one of his famous debates, but heck, if you're going to get beat, it might as well be by a better gentleman. I think he probably is a better gentleman than I am. Alex Jones, you're no gentleman. I'm sorry. I'm not even sure you're not the guy that they claim disappeared a while back, and you're not a CIA asset. Barack Obama was definitely a CIA asset, and he runs the country today. How's that third term of Barack Obama going for you, folks? How come you don't get your pitchforks out? How come you don't stop paying into the system? How come you don't cease to comply and bring the system to a halt? You can do it. We can do it easily. Don't even have to take any guns out and shoot guns or shoot anybody. All you have to do is stop complying with their bullshit. And then form your own governments on a county basis. Even Thomas Jefferson described how to get the republic back. And there was a county in Mississippi named Jones County that set a great example. Now, the founder of it, I don't think we ought to follow his example. He did some things which I don't agree with. I think Yahweh loves his creation the way he designed it, and he doesn't want these species mixing like we have. The evil that comes out of that is really bad. If you don't believe me, read about the flood of Noah. It's the longest accounting in the Bible. It's even longer than the creation story. Folks, thanks for hanging with me this long. Like this video and share this video. We need to rise up. We need to become Bible readers. We need to become men of Yahweh, Creator, Father. I don't give a damn what species you are, what race you are, whatever you want to call yourselves. What I care about is you abiding by natural law. I mean, I know there are black Hebrew Israelites out there, and I know we got the crusty cracker guys like myself, the white pasty guys. We do know that Jesus, your Jesus, my Yeshua, the Messiah, your Christ. We do know that he had blonde hair and blue eyes. Now, I'm working on my blonde hair. No, I had brown hair. Now I got white hair. Guess that makes me a white supremacist, right? Like Clarence Thomas? He's got that white hair. He's got to be a white supremacist too, right? He's an amazing gentleman. Anyway, what I'm getting at is we can all serve Yahweh. And my friend, Rudy Dent, who was the fireman from New York City, who passed away recently, he and I argued about black Hebrew Israelites. And really what it comes down to is every knee shall bow. So who am I to say that black Hebrew Israelites shouldn't worship Yahweh? Wouldn't that be counterproductive? So I encourage everybody, read the Bible. Figure out your place in it. And figure out your salvation. And when you find yourselves in it, tell the rest of us about it. We want to know. Yahweh bless.